Hi everyone, my name is Justin Whittle. I'm a physiotherapist and a cyclist, and I've got a keen interest in all things bike fitting and bike health for anyone who is pedaling a bike. And I'd like to thank the organizers for Bon Rexton for inviting me along today. The health benefits of cycling are very far reach, mainly in the cardiovascular system, I think. When we think of like lung and heart health, we think of cycling for sure as being the greatest benefit all, similar to that of running or swimming or any other endurance type activity. I would say that cycling would have the greatest impact, positive impact on the cardiovascular system predominantly. Yes, there are some benefits to muscular strength as well, but those would be on the much lesser side in comparison to the cardiovascular benefits. The body is being used as a pretty large unit when we're cycling, actually. Obviously, it's the legs that drive the pedals, which is the largest muscular engine, I suppose. But you're still really engaging your core and your arms as well as you're supporting yourself on the bike, especially on a road bike, because you're in a static position for potentially a very long period of time. When we think about Bon Rexton, it's going to be more than 100 kilometers that people are riding there that day for the most part. So it's a long time in the saddle, so your upper body is really engaged as well. So your entire body has to work together from head to toe, really, and be as a coordinated unit to power you around the Bonavista Peninsula that day. When it comes to injuries with cycling, most cycling injuries are overuse injuries is what it comes down to. And there's a lot of things that impact overuse injuries on a bicycle. And one is the bike fit itself. The bike has to be fitted properly overall, a person's level of fitness and their technique as well, their pedaling technique and their handling technique. And also the general load or training volume that they put in over the course of time leading up to an event, like the Bon Rexton GranFondo, of course. So it's all those combination of things that make a big difference. It's one thing to hop on your bicycle and maybe ride around your neighborhood and come home. Nothing feels bad, there's no pain. And it's a completely different story when you start going 25, 50, 75, 100 kilometers and above. All of a sudden, all the factors of sitting on that bike and a person's health status basically impact their overall comfort on the bike and their ability on the bike. So there's a lot of things that need to come together to make long distance riding a fun, healthy, and comfortable activity. Without question, the leg muscles are getting the greatest repetitive motion while you're cycling. There's no doubt about that. But as we already said, the core muscles are very important as you're leaned over the bike all day for whatever period of time. And of course, as you're gripping the bars, you do have weight on your upper body as well. But from a driving perspective, your drivetrain, it's all coming from your legs predominantly. But like we already said, the body works as a full unit from head to toe. So as important as it is to ride your bike to build up to sort of a goal or an event like folks are planning on for September in this case, it's equally important that you're taking care of your body off of the bike as well as you're going through your cycling season, your training season, from recreational to more elite riders with loftier goals perhaps. Everybody should be considering their on-bike time, their off-bike time, and some recovery time in the middle of all that as well.
Great.
When it comes to bike fit, there's a lot of factors involved to getting somebody comfortable on their bicycle. And when it also comes to bike fit, it depends on people's goals as well. So the bottom line is, the more aerodynamic somebody wants to be, that's more of an aggressive position, more of a bent over, extremely spine flex position that puts a lot of strain on the body but would make somebody more aerodynamic. So many of us, me included, we watch professional riders and we see these really aggressive positions they're in and we try to emulate them. And you know what? That's actually not very comfortable for many of us, no matter what our level of fitness is. So what we're trying to do is find a balance of performance and sustainability. And I guess I'll say comfort. So if we think comfortable, we don't think of a road bike at all, perhaps. Maybe we should be on some other type of a bike, but we're looking for sustained positions that our body can work with. And what you'll notice with Bike Fit as well is that as your time carries on through your cycling season and your years of cycling, what you'll notice is that you're able to tolerate more aggressive positions for a lot longer periods of time. And frankly speaking, if we set you up with the perfect bike fit for you, your seat, your bars, your cleats, every component is dialed in perfectly, it's still going to make a big difference to a 25-kilometer ride versus 100 kilometers and beyond. Everybody's going to respond to that a little bit different. So bike fit is really important, but it still works in combination with your body and your level of fitness and your level of tolerance for the position. Think about a long day of travel on an airplane. When you first sit down on that airplane, probably feels fairly comfortable. Hour 3, hour 6 or beyond, not so comfortable. And that's just because you've been in that sustained position for a long period of time. So you need to consider that with bike fit as well. So when it comes to bike fit, essentially we have 3 main points of contact when we're on a bicycle: our hands, our seat, and our pedals and our feet. And this is our 3 points of contact. Whenever I'm doing a bike fit, I always look at the drivetrain first, and I start with the cleats first. So since everyone here is riding a road bike for the most part, for the events, let's just talk about the cleat position for one moment. If I had somebody in the clinic, I'd be doing a lot of work with their feet and making markers on their feet, things of this nature. But the bottom line is, the simplest way I can put it is the ball of your foot. So everybody has a ball of the foot right on the inside here. That ball of your foot should line up just ahead of your pedal spindle. So the pedal spindle straight off the bike right here. The ball of your foot on your cycling shoe should be just ahead of your pedal spindle. So ball of the foot just ahead of the pedal spindle. Remember that as you're trying to get your cleats adjust it, and you'll get very close overall. There's lots of other adjustments with the cleats as well, but if you're not sure where to start with getting your cleat on the shoe, get the ball of the foot just ahead of the pedal spindle, and that'll be your first place to begin. There's lots of other reasons why we move the cleats around, but that's certainly a rule of thumb just to start with if you're setting up your cleats, especially if you're a little newer to cycling and clipless pedal systems. So that will essentially get you into a position with your foot in the proper position. Then we move to the seat height. Seat height is extremely important to get correct as well. And essentially, once you're on your bicycle and you're pedaling, what we're looking for is when you're at drop dead center with your cleats on your bicycle, you should have a knee angle of about 30 degrees. The literature says 25 to 35 degrees is the range, so I always go in the middle with 30, again, as a starting point. Once you have your cleats on your bike and you're at the bottom of your pedal stroke. And I like to line up the crank arm with the seat tube, because that's the furthest it's going to be away from you when you're actually in that pedaling position. As you move through the bottom, it's actually getting closer again, and your knee angle is changing dramatically. A real simple way to do that without taking any sort of device to measure your knee angle, when you're in that bottom position, think about putting your heel on your pedal, and your knee should be in a fairly straight position with the heel on the pedal. Again, my preference in clinic would certainly to be make a measurement with the cleat actually in the pedal itself, and you're looking for that angle right there. But rule of thumb, you're setting it up at home yourself. As long as you've got that crank arm in alignment with that seat tube, get your heel on the pedal, and if your leg is roughly straight, you're in a reasonable position to begin with your seat height. So obviously you can imagine if I were to lower my seat, my knee angle is going to be a lot, is going to be flexed a lot more. And if I were to raise my seat, it's going to be a much more straightened position, which we want to avoid as well. So another component with pedaling is you want to try to keep your feet basically in a horizontal position. Sometimes you'll notice people have sort of a toe down type of pedaling style or strategy. You're looking to be in roughly a horizontal foot position, which will give you the greatest mechanical advantage and leverage for the foot to power through. Toe down, you start to lose some mechanical advantage in the ankle system, basically speaking. And toe down could also indicate that somebody's seat is too high for them because they're reaching for the pedal is what it comes down to. For the most part, what I see with recreational cyclists is seats too high, and again, I'm unsure, but I think it comes from that that idea of watching the professionals on television, high seat, really slammed bars for that aerodynamic position, and frankly, that's not what we're trying to get here. We're trying to create positions that people are able to sustain for long periods of time. Professional racers, maybe they can sustain it, or maybe they're simply being paid enough money to sustain those positions. Who's to really say? So you need to think about that as well. Don't try to be too aggressive in your positioning. It needs to be sustainable. And then when it comes to the bars, so once we have our drivetrain set up, one more adjustment with the seat actually that I forgot to mention. Ideally, you can set your bike up on a trainer. One thing that's really important with the seat, and this is something I've run into repeatedly as well in clinic, is I always ask people if their seat feels flat to them. It's not enough to simply eyeball the seat and measure and say, oh yeah, my seat looks flat, that's great. What you're going to notice with seats, they all have a level of give, which causes the seat to hammock, basically speaking. So the seat position is really dynamic. So you really want to get on your seat, get on your bike. Get into your pedal position, ideally with your regular riding shorts, if you wear bibs or chamois, of anything of that nature, your regular cleats, and you should be able to sit up on your bike just like this, cross your arms over, and in a perfect world, you should feel like you're sitting very level and flat on the bike seat. If you feel like you're sliding rearward, that could be an indication that you need to tilt your seat forward a wee bit, nose down. And if you feel like you're slipping down the hill, that means you need to tip the nose upwards a little bit. So the visual of the seat, when you're not seated there, is not necessarily going to tell the whole story of the seat being flat. You have to have the sensation that as you're sitting there, you're sitting on a flat, level surface. A big problem that a lot of cyclists will complain about is numbness in the hands, and one major reason for that numbness in the hands is if the nose is down on the seat, well, what happens at that point is a lot more of the body weight gets dumped onto the upper body, and you're almost for sure certainly going to run into problems with your hands and numbness, as many people do complain about. So a level seat will basically spread out that load on the body in a much better fashion as long as that seat is level. And then when it comes to your bars, on the assumption you have a bike that fits you correctly, what we're looking for here, people have multiple riding positions when it comes to a drop bar bike. Riding on the hoods, I think this is where a lot of people are, maybe back on the corner. You've got your ups, your downs, and it's important to vary that position over the course of a long period of riding, like a GranFondo. But what we're looking for, your predominant cycling position, I would say this is about my predominant cycling position, we never want to see straight arms. That could mean two things. Too much weight is being dumped onto the upper body, or the bars could be too far away for that person. They could be lengthened out too much. So if a bike is really large or too large for the person, they'll really have to lean way forward to get the bars. And then there's small micro adjustments that can be made with the stem length right here. Does it need to be closer to you? Does it need to be further from you? It's pretty rare, but occasionally you'll see a very tall person and they feel like they're bunched up on the bike. That is rare, honestly. If anything, what I see most in clinic is when people are really stretched out. And again, that could be pedaling strategy, the way the drivetrain is set up. There's a number of reasons for that, but roughly speaking, whatever your dominant pedaling pattern is, we want to see a slight bend in that elbow so we don't feel like you're hanging on for dear life. So the three takeaways, I think: ball of the foot just ahead of the pedal spindle. That's a good place to begin. Flat seat. When you are in the position with your hands on the bars, your dominant position, there should be a slight elbow bend. Again, those would be three rules of thumb that will get you into a reasonable position to begin without going to your local bike shop or a bike fitting professional of sorts. Neck position is something else that we should address as well. So as you can see, I'm here. This is my own bike. I'm very comfortable in the position I'm in. It's not to say that I'm in a perfect position as if I'm a pro athlete or something of that nature, but this is a position that my body has learned to adapt to, and I feel very comfortable here. I can look down the road, see what's coming, and watch out for cars and any other obstacles in my way. So a lot of people do complain about neck pain when it comes to being on the bike, especially a drop bar bike, gravel bike, or road bike. And again, back to the idea we talked about the aggressive positions before. So if somebody's bar height was really low, that means they get a lot more aerodynamic, but it means a lot more neck movement, neck extension we call this, to look down the road safely, which puts a lot of pressure on your neck, which can be very uncomfortable if you're simply not used to it. And it's over the course of time riding, your riding season, all the way to your years of cycling, that can make a big difference. Simple example, during the winter time, I ride on a trainer indoors like many other people. I tend to sit up in a really relaxed and comfortable position. Got my screen in front of me, whatever I'm watching on that screen, whether you're doing Zwift or you're watching Netflix, whatever the case is. And then all of a sudden, when we move to outdoor cycling, I tend to get in more of an aggressive position, I guess I'll say, and that's because once you get outside, well, you're just dealing with a lot more wind resistance for one, and you're doing your best just to get along in those headwinds. And if there's anything we know about as cyclists, a headwind can really slow you down, so you're doing everything you can to get into proper position. So back to what we touched on earlier, we're looking for sustainable postures is what it comes down to. So if you're brand new to cycling, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable to get in a very extremely flexed over aerodynamic type posture. You're going to want to be more upright. And what you'll notice as your season and your years go on, you're able to get in more of an aerodynamic type posture and sustain it for much longer periods of time is the bottom line. And I remember the first 5 years of riding for me, it was a dramatic difference, and I was actually able to remove spacers from my headset over the course of those 5 years and remain very comfortable on the bike and sustain those positions for long periods of time. So when you think about your neck position, looking down the road, that's obvious because that's your safety, that's your eyes. So how far you have to lean forward on your bike or how low you go really influences that neck position. You're looking for a position that is sustainable for you is what it comes down to. So you're able to maintain it for the length of ride that you're going to be heading out on. If you're doing the GranFondo and you normally only do 25 to 50 kilometer rides, you're going to want to think about taking breaks during your ride. Breaks can be dynamic, simply coming out of the saddle. When you get a chance to coast, come out of the saddle, move your hips to the side, hips to the side. Practice all these things before you go out on the GranFondo in a safe area where there's no traffic. And obviously, stop along the way and take breaks along the way. Remember my airline example, sitting in that seat for many hours? That comfortable seat gets pretty uncomfortable after a long, long day of travel. So it's no different on the bike is what it comes down to. There's no perfect bike fit that you can simply sustain forever. That doesn't exist, nor does the airline seat exist like that. So if you want to take breaks by just standing, coming out of the saddle, letting yourself bend forward a wee bit, hips to the side, hips to the side. You'll see people go backwards. Anytime you change your position, the body likes movement. And one thing about drop bar bikes, it's very sustained for long periods of time. The body likes to change position. So one, you need to do this safely, first of all. So if you're not comfortable coming out of the saddle and kind of moving your body around, don't do that. Stop, get off the bike. There'll be breaks along the way in a GranFondo, so use those breaks appropriately to get off the bike and take whatever length break you need. And also, don't be afraid to take a break during the ride itself. A lot of people have it in their head that I can't take a break, I've got a time in my mind. I can almost assure you that if you stop and take a break for that minute or two, whatever it is, I bet the period that you are pedaling will be a lot more efficient because you're more comfortable, and those breaks will see you finish in a shorter time. They won't take away from your time at all, in my opinion. So now let's talk about some of the work we need to do off the bike. And this isn't during the ride. This is exercises that you do in the weeks leading up to the ride and just during your cycling season as well. So if you go to the internet, you'll find a million exercises or stretches and all kinds of things that you can do. So I picked out just a small selection here today to run through that I think are key exercises that are helpful. By no means is this the end list for all, not even close. You'll find much more if you do some searching around, and frankly, you'll find lots of great information as well. The exercises I'm going to show you, there's going to be a link provided so you can actually go to a website and see videos of these and a layout for how to go about them as well. So it'll be a little clearer when you go to that link afterwards. So I'm going to quickly run through them just to show you the basic exercises. And I've considered exercises that target key areas and also bring the whole body together from a strength perspective and a mobility perspective. So number one, upper back. You've got your arms down on the bars all day long. Your upper back takes a lot of strain. Your upper body takes a lot of strain. A real simple exercise. Get yourself a resistance band, and you're going to do this exercise pulling the band out to the side just like this. I think in the exercise video you'll see they call these Brugers. I'm not sure where that name came from. Pull aparts, band apart, call it whatever you like. And there'll be sets and reps and those types of information in that as well once you get there. All right, so this is another exercise we're going to go through. It's called the mid-thigh pull. And we're going to do this with a hold. It's not actually moving to and fro like you might be used to with other exercises. So what you're going to do is get a band, place it under your legs just like that, and try to gather up enough tension so when you pull to this mid-thigh position, I am required to be slightly flexed, and you're going to hold this position for 10 seconds is usually what I start with people, and you hold it for a count of 10, and then you relax down again. And again, in the link that we'll send you, you'll see the sets and reps and how to go about that. And what's really great about this exercise, it's engaging my legs, my lower back, my core, and my arms all at the same time, which really mimics being on the bike where you're holding yourself in position, you're pedaling, so everything is getting engaged from top to bottom at the same time, and this exercise is helping promote the muscles to work in coordination like that. When it comes to cycling injuries, one of the missing links that seems to come up over and over again in the literature is glute weakness, your butt basically, and the sides of your hips specifically, with the glutes that come around to the side. So a real simple exercise to address these big powerful muscles that help drive your pedals. You get a loop of resistance band, place it around your feet like so, slightly bent position, and you're just doing side walking, side to side stepping. And you do it in both directions to work both sides, obviously. Again, the link will be provided after the fact. Another great exercise to work the glutes. Now, another exercise to really bring in muscular coordination of the upper body and the lower body is, they call this the bear crawl position. So what you do, you get down, hands and knees, lift your knees, and there's a lot of variations on this exercise, and the simple variation I've chosen is touch your hand to your opposite shoulder, just like this. Again, you're very much in that coordinated position where your upper body, core, and lower body are all working as a unit. And imagine as you're pedaling along and you reach for your water bottle, all of a sudden you're one hand on the handlebars. So this is a great exercise that mimics some of that coordination of being on the bike. Now I want to talk about a couple of mobility exercises. One would be mobility, the other we might call it stretching, I suppose. Again, I've chosen a couple of key exercises that I think will be helpful for most folks. They've been helpful for me that I've really employed over the course of time, especially with cycling. Again, you'll find lots more if you do your own searching. There's no doubt about that. I remember the first time I did a 100-kilometer plus ride several years ago now, and as I got off my bike, I felt like I would never be out of this position again. I was so stiff and it was uncomfortable, but I set out that day with the goal of 100 plus. I did it, and I wasn't sure if I'd ever straighten up again. One simple exercise to get your lower back loosened up is, a lot of people might know this from yoga, would be just the cat-cows. Now, we're only doing this in our lower back or lumbar spine. Sometimes you'll see it with the entire back being flexed and extended. The lower back is my target area for this exercise. And this is just a general mobility exercise to loosen up your lower back. I even give this out to people who work at office desks all day long. So getting that lower back sorted out is really important as it relates to cycling. The other thing that's super important is hamstring stretching. There's a neat exercise that's going to be in the video link that I'm going to show you that uses a wall to do this stretch. I can't quite do it right here. I'm going to do my best to mimic it. And so if you can imagine, I'm actually going to be lying at the corner of a wall, and one foot is going to go up the wall around the corner. This leg is going to be down lower. I'm going to use this strap to mimic that. So this foot is up on the wall like so, and the other leg, unlike a traditional hamstring stretch, what we're going to do is dynamically lower our leg to and fro and do it multiple times, because in the end, it's dynamic flexibility and mobility that we really need for any athletic type movements such as cycling. We need that mobility, but it needs to be available through range on command as needed, no matter what we're doing. So again, you'll see that in the video, and there will be a wall in the picture, which makes it easier to do as well. So that pretty much wraps it up for today for us, just hitting on some of the highlights of bike fitting and thinking about your overall health on the bike. By no means am I the be-all, end-all expert for bike fit. I've done a number of courses over the last couple of years and have learned a lot and have a lot more to learn. So by all means, if there's anything contrary to something else you've seen or learned, I'd be all ears and would love to hear about it, actually, if there's any way that I can improve on what I'm providing here. So hopefully you found some of these hints and tips helpful today, and hopefully you have a great season of riding. Thanks very much.
This morning I woke restless and heady, with blood pulsing fierce in the vein.
Another great exercise, which really engages the whole body, is called the mid-thigh pull. We're going to do this isometrically. So you're going to get a band, whatever you can find at your local sports store. Maybe you have something at home. You're going to get into sort of a deadlift position. You're going to lift and hold at approximately mid-thigh. So you can see that I am still lightly flexed. The band just broke. Cut.